Hi knitters, welcome to episode 141 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. Oh my gosh, how did we get here? I am Devin Ventry, your host, and you can find me online at KnittyMcPurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly on Instagram, and if you want to email me, I am Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. I'm a little behind on my email right now. So my family was at the beach last week in North Carolina, and we got back super late Friday night, and so I feel like we're all still a little like, you know, like it takes time to re-enter your regular life, and we're just not quite there yet. Oh my gosh. So right now I am drinking water out of my Colorado mug from Julie and Deb. This is my favorite water bottle. I'm just carrying it around all the time. Thank you so much, Julie and Deb. I love it. If you don't know Julie and Deb, Julie is the Knitty Cats podcast. Go check it out. I will link it down below. It was a good week. It was a good vacation. It was a lot of drama. Oh my gosh. You guys, it was so much drama. Not in my like nuclear family, but in the larger family. It was a lot of drama. I didn't sleep very well on the trip, and I also almost didn't knit, but I'll tell more about that in the progress section. But yeah, it was a lot. But I did get some souvenirs that I'm gonna show. This one is just a really cute mug. Isn't it so happy? It's just so cheerful. And I was like, I think I need this mug. It's so yellow and it fills me with joy. So I like to have a cup to carry around at the beach. And even though I brought one, I brought my Florida one. You might notice I'm decorated in state mugs today. This is a good place to keep them because the cupboard only has so much space. And this way you can see them all, and I'll move them around as I use them. Arkansas is not here because it's Gigi's favorite. It's like fat on the bottom, and she just loves that. So anyway, I got this mug, and oh, North Carolina. So it's just like Florida. Starbucks has these. These are like, every state is available at Starbucks. And they even, in Virginia, they even have a Virginia mug that's like mug shaped. But this one's so cute. It's got barbecue, and my favorite part is this right here, which is the walkway to the beach. And that's just what I think of when I think of North Carolina, because when we go there, that's where we go. And it has a lot of other stuff, lighthouses, Blue Ridge Mountains. My husband liked the pig and the barbecue reference because he is a smoker of meat and a lover of delicious food. So, okay, progress and shop news. Oh, I forgot my Molly sweater. Hold on. Whew, I just ran up the stairs. Rocky's waiting outside the door for me, our blind dog, because we basically left him at home for the week, and our neighbor came over, you know, a lot to check on him and play with him and stuff, and he missed us. So he's just sitting outside the door with his ball, waiting for me to come out. Before I show you my Molly sweater, I am wearing the Audrey sweater. I'm not gonna stand up because I'm just wearing my sweatpants on the bottom half. But this beautiful Audrey sweater was made out of Warsaw worsted, knit for me by Rachel. Thanks, Rachel. I love it. Looks so great. And I'm wearing the Joy necklace in gold, and it matches these earrings I got from Grace and Wood. I think that looks really good together. Wore it to Mass this morning. Yeah, the Audrey is a great sweater pattern. I really, really like it. A lot of people have knit it, and it's very versatile. So anyway, I didn't do a lot of knitting on vacation. The only time I knit was in the car on the way down there, and I knit the whole way. So like, it was like 4 hours of knitting. So, you know, I got further. I'm a good bit under the arm, but you know, it's lace weight. Gosh, it blows out so much because it's so pale here. How's that? Anyway, there's yarn all up it. I haven't even taken it out of the bag. So I'm going to talk more about that in my topic of the week section. I can't believe I ran all the way downstairs just to show you a few more inches on that sweater. But I just didn't get very far. Now, I love the mohair. It's not mohair, it's Surrey silk. I love the Surrey silk. And I really didn't think about knitting much on vacation. It was a lot. There's a lot going on. But this morning, I was sitting there thinking, I love a Surrey silk sweater. I love it. I think I need another one. There's less stitch definition because of the fluff. And if you make a mistake, you don't really notice. It's not like a cotton or something that's like, you know, just has a ton of stitch definition. So that's really nice. And I just love it. Like, it's so light and soft and warm without being bulky. It really makes me want to knit more things like that. So I was letting my imagination run this morning, and I was thinking how awesome a Potomac cardigan would be knit in Surrey silk. Now that I know that I can get the same gauge with Surrey silk as with a fingering weight yarn. It makes me, I'm like, well, what other fingering weight sweaters can I make out of Surrey silk? And that's a cardigan. So that would actually serve several purposes, because I have wanted a dressier cardigan. And I was thinking, what if I made the Potomac cardigan, left out the pockets, and made it short, not like cropped, but like hip bone length? I think that would be awesome. It would be a great dressy sweater. Probably in either pewter or morel. Morel. That would be awesome. I see that as my next cast on. I brought so much stuff to work on at the beach, and I didn't do any of it. My brain was just overloaded. It was not relaxing. It had some good qualities, but I came home needing another vacation. So basically what I decided was I'm going to take the next week, because my big kids start school on Wednesday, and I wasn't really committed to starting my homeschoolers this week. I was open to whatever worked out for me. So we're gonna take this week and we're gonna clean and organize and get ourselves fully ready so that we can start the following Monday. I'm not sure what the date on that is, like the 28th maybe. So that's the plan. I don't know. Is that right? I don't know. Okay. Sock rulers will be in the shop on Friday at noon Eastern time. Now, don't feel like you need to set an alarm unless you're somebody who is desperate for a sock ruler, because I have plenty. They're not going to sell out in an hour. That won't happen, probably. You never know, but probably not. But if you want one, you know, log in sometime on Friday afternoon and go get one. I think these sock rulers are kind of unique. I have a whole video, and it's short. It's just like a 5 or so minute video where I go through all of the features of the sock ruler. I'll link that down below if you're interested, if you haven't already seen it. But anyway, these will be available in the shop on Friday. Many, many people have asked, when are they coming back? Friday. So there's that. All right. Still have August's color of the month, reminiscent of Barbie, and also Watermelon by the Pool, and just summer, I feel like. It's just such a summery color, and that was what I wanted to embrace for August. So that's available in Dubrovnik DK and Frankfurt Fingering if you want to go check that out. This is the last summer color. Next month, I'm going to be embracing all of the fall. One thing I did do on the beach trip is I gave a lot of thought to my business going forward, because I don't want to burn out, and I have been designing this year like I've always designed, kind of off the cuff and as it comes. And since my business has grown, I am still designing like all I do is design knitting patterns. And I'm doing too many things. And when I'm doing too many things, that chance of burning out is higher, and I just needed to plan better, really. So I sat down with my thinking and I talked to my husband. He's good for me to bounce ideas off of because I'm an extrovert. So these thoughts get stuck in my brain if I don't talk about them. And what I decided is I want to do my calendars. I've got a Lent calendar every year and an Advent calendar every year. And I love those, and they're so fun and people love them. So I'm going to do those every year. I'd also like to release 2 sweaters a year. A spring sweater that would be a spring pattern released in the spring. Why didn't someone come up with this sooner? A spring pattern for the spring and a fall pattern for the fall. So rather than being so kind of off the cuff, to plan and release sweaters as they are appropriate, and to plan for 2 a year. That's super doable for me. And, you know, I used to do 8 to 10 patterns a year, most of them sweaters. But if your business is bigger than that, you just don't have time. So, you know, you get to the point in a business where you're like, is what I have what I want, or do I want to stay here, or do I want to get bigger? And getting bigger means hiring employees and renting a space. And at this stage, I just don't want to do that, because then you become the manager and not the doer. And right now I'm happy. I love what I have going on. I just need to make it more manageable so that I can keep going, so that it doesn't crash and burn in a fire of exhaustion. I will keep doing the color of the month. That is really fun. It is totally doable for me. And everyone really likes it. So the color of the month is fun. And I'll have my holiday specials. I usually do Mother's Day and the 4th of July and Black Friday. And what else do I do? I feel like there's more than that. But there's a couple holidays that I have grabbed onto as these are my holidays that I'm gonna participate in. So, all right, topic of the week. I thought about all the grafting methods that I've been talking about the past few weeks, but with the trip, I just didn't have time to pull that together. So we're going to talk more about that next week. But this week, thinking about my own beach trip and how the stress of it, I had a very stressful vacation. The stress of it caused me not to knit. And, you know, I often don't knit at the beach, partly because it's hot and it's sandy and sweaty and sunscreeny, and that's not necessarily conducive to knitting. It can be if you really want it to be, but if you're feeling overwhelmed already, sometimes it just doesn't happen. So for me, this week, not knitting was therapeutic. I needed a break. And over my vacation, I got an email from a podcast watcher who I won't name because I don't know if she would like that. But she just said, you know, her husband of almost 50 years passed away, and her knitting was getting her through. And I thought, knitting is therapy, and sometimes not knitting is therapy. And so I internalized that a lot this week, because for me, my husband and I have been married 21 years, and he has the other half of my brain. I learned once recently about collective memory. Is that the word? Is that the right word? Where the people around you share your memories, and when that person is gone, it's like half your brain is gone. And that's a whole part of the grieving process. And I've been praying for you, my wonderful friend, who I met at the retreat. I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine. But it made me think about grief projects, because last time we talked about losing your knitting mojo and how the best way to get it back is to find a project that you are super into, or a yarn that you just can't wait to use, something that really motivates you, whatever it is, can be anything. But don't pick up that boring old whip out of yarn that you're not in love with and expect to get your knitting mojo back, because you won't. That won't do it. It's got to be something new, something exciting, That boring old project is for when you're in the work of it and you just are excited to finish something. But when you've lost the mojo, you need to go find something exciting, something that motivates you, no matter what part of it motivates you, the project, the yarn, whatever. But it made me wonder about a grief project. Like, what would be a good grief project? And I thought something that's comforting, like a shawl or a blanket, or something that's motivating or reminiscent, something that makes you think of that person. I don't know. But I thought maybe you guys could weigh in on that. I know many of you have lost people close to you because you've told me, and how hard that is, and how your knitting has helped, because it's that constant, it's that thing that you do to keep your mind going. But I wondered, what is the best kind of grief project, or what kind of project got you through a time of grief? If you want to leave a comment, that would be awesome, and we'll share them next week. Which brings me to the comment section. Okay, Texas Sheep Lady said, first things first, knitting is first. Isn't that biblical? We were all knit in the womb. You know, that is so true. And it makes me wonder about that. Is it a psalm? I'm showing my lack of biblical knowledge here. Pretty sure it's a psalm, isn't it? That we were knit in the womb. I wonder if what the origin, what is the word, the original word that was used there that we have translated to knit? Like, does it have to do with stitching? Gosh, now I got to go look that up. Sarah W. says, Elizabeth's story reminded me of the trip Hubs and I took to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We had a delayed flight, causing us to miss our connecting flight in Minneapolis. We were stuck there overnight. I asked Hubs, when will we ever be in Minneapolis again? We're going to the Mall of America. Lemons, lemonade. And that is so true. That's a great attitude to have towards life. Whenever you're in a situation that is not exactly what you want, what can we do to make this fun? I have a neighbor she's about to turn 21, and she's getting married in October, and Gigi is her maid of honor. And she was asking me for marriage advice. And we're gonna get to, I feel like I'm saying a lot. I'll be at the top of my game again. I'm just not quite there yet. She wanted to have coffee with me. And one of the things that I definitely want to tell her is, when you're in a situation that's not your favorite, think, how can we make this fun? How can we make this into a good memory and not a bad memory? I got so many compliments on the Gigi section. It was great. It was such a good section last week. If you missed it, go back and watch it. And compliments on Gigi's blanket. It turned out so good. It's on her bed. If I can get a picture, I'll put it up. Ann Fuller said, I love that everyone talks about preparing travel knitting first. Have a great trip. I know, right? Like, that's what we do first. And ironically, I just didn't even crack it, other than on the drive down there. Lana D, hi Lana, says, Devin, I hope you have a wonderful time at the beach. Throughout this episode, I just kept saying, me too. When packing for a trip, I always figure out what knitting projects I'll be taking along before I figure out anything else. Flight delays don't matter if you have your knitting. Traffic doesn't matter if you have your audiobook. And I also marked my calendar for the next retreat. I can't wait. I vote yes for the regular Gigi Crochets segment. She is a joy to watch. She truly is. She is not going to make an appearance this episode, but I do have a little bit to say on that. Hallowed Angel and Susan Pearson both gave the same comment last week, and it was amazing, excellent. They both said, when you're making a toy, if you want to put poly pellets in like the bum of the animal or the feet or the hands, use pantyhose. So just take pantyhose, and I would imagine you kind of pack it loosely in there, probably like a knee high, right? Stick the poly pellets in there, maybe tie a knot in the top, and put that in the part where you want to have the poly pellets, and that keeps them in. That's genius, because you wouldn't detect it. through the animal later. You wouldn't be like, what is that I feel in there? And it'll hold on to them. Genius, genius idea. Okay, crocheting with Gigi. So, I don't have a finished object to show. I posted this picture on Instagram. You may have seen it. On the way down there, you know how it is on a road trip, right? Everybody's so happy and excited on the way down there. And Gigi is the silentest. She's the quietest in the car. So I didn't really notice that she wasn't saying anything in the back. And then we're 3/4 of the way there and she's like, look what I just made. And she made the bear in a frog suit. The brim of it ended up being a little wavier than the pattern, but it was so cute. It just looked like he was wearing a little hat. And it was so cute. She did the ears in brown. And on our trip, so this is kind of an extended family trip where, you know, it's a large group and, you know, there are people who we only see at the beach or almost only see at the beach. And this little girl who I did not ask her mom if I could use her picture, so I covered up her face, but she loved the bear so much that Gigi said, you can just keep him. She just loved him. And she walked around being like, Gigi made this for me. Gigi made this for me. It was so sweet. So Gigi does have a finished object, but all we have of it right now are pictures. So that's all I have to say about that. Moving on to knitting fantasies. My oldest daughter is really into Halloween and fall decorating. This is like her favorite thing. She does not get this from me. This is just her. The only thing I do for Halloween is maybe some pumpkins. That's it. I have like some fabric pumpkins that I got on clearance after Halloween one year. They're like velvet pumpkins with like sparkly stems, and I'll put those out, but that's about it. But my oldest daughter loves Halloween imagery. Cute little ghosts and candy corns, and she just loves all that. So when I went looking for knitting patterns, recognizing that the next big holiday is Halloween, and many people are into Halloween, lots of people get really into it. So when I went looking for knitting patterns, I found this Halloween sweater. This is on Etsy by Shop Yarn Love. It is in DK weight. And it comes in a lot of sizes. It goes from a 25-inch bust to a 65-inch bust. So that is literally like everyone over the age of 10. Most, you know, older elementary age kids are about 25 to 30 inches. That's really a sweater that fits a lot of people. And it has all of this cute imagery, the ghosts with the little pink cheeks and the candy corns and all of the fall colors. It's a lot of fun. My oldest daughter would love this sweater. But because I don't have a lot of time, if I were gonna make something for her, I would probably pick this hat, also by Shop Yarn Love. She says in the sweater listing, if you like the imagery, but you don't wanna commit to a sweater, try the hat. It's also in DK weight yarn. And it is really, really cute. All right, so here's what happened. Today's story, move this up because the print is small. Today's story comes from a podcast watcher named Tammy. Hi, Tammy. Thank you so much for sending this wonderful story. It spans many, many years and tells something that is just really important in the lives of knitters, and that is knitting friendships. So many of us have great knitting friendships. All of my knitting friends I know because of Knitty McPurly. I don't have any knitting friends in my real life. All my real life friends are muggles. They do not knit. So this is what Tammy has to say. She says, hi, Devin. I love your weekly podcasts. They are so entertaining, interesting, inspiring, and unique. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I really do think you need to keep the Gigi section. As long as she is crocheting, I will. Maybe that'll keep her going. I also enjoyed the discussion about Michigan. I am a troll, but I love the Upper Peninsula and sometimes wish I was a Youper so I could wear more knits. Okay, so I get that trolls are under the bridge, but why Youper? Somebody's got to tell me, a Michigander, why are you called Yoopers if you're in the Upper Peninsula? The knitting story section has finally encouraged me to send my story. I hope it isn't too long. If I had to title this story, it would be BKFF, Best Knitting Friend Forever. It is a story that includes faith, friends, pets, and knitting. When I was a child, my Aunt Bee was an amazing crafter. She was the real Aunt Bee, not the one in the Andy Griffith Show. She was my great aunt, and I spent several weeks with her every summer and multiple other times throughout the year. She taught me to do basket weaving, pottery, cross stitch, embroidery, sewing, jewelry from shells, crocheting, and I made my first yarn doll. Wow! With all of her expertise, which included knitting, she couldn't teach me to knit, even though she tried. Fast forward 20 plus years to 2003. I was working as a nurse at our local hospital and transferred to our case management department. My workstation was in an outer office, but this is where God's love and care comes into play. He knew what I needed before I did and intervened before I even knew to pray for his intervention. Although I was in an outer office, I was placed on a team with Karen and Stephanie. We were instant friends. A few months later, a workstation became available in their office, and although I was low seniority, I was able to move into Karen and Stephanie's office. We not only worked, but we shared life experiences, children's weddings, birth of grandchildren, laughter, and at times, sadness. During this time, I lost my mother. It was one of the most challenging times in my life, but I understood why God put me in that office. Karen was like my big sister, and Stephanie became my adopted mother. It was also during this time I came to appreciate the talents of Stephanie. She loved to sew and knit. I loved seeing her creations, especially the baby hats for her grandchildren that looked like either a strawberry or pumpkin, etc. I told Stephanie that I could crochet, but always wanted to learn how to knit. She volunteered to teach me, so our lunch breaks were spent learning how to knit, and I finally figured it out. My first project was an Afghan. Over the next several years, there were many changes in our lives. I moved on to another position at the hospital. Stephanie retired but returned as a volunteer. This is where our love for animals entwined our lives together forever. Stephanie had 2 cats named Caspian and Grizzy that she needed to rehome. Of course, I couldn't say no and brought them home to reside with our other feline and canine family members. Stephanie's volunteer role was pet therapy, where she and Elsa, a large Newfoundland, would come every week to the hospital to visit with patients and staff. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. It was the highlight of my week whenever I would see her and Elsa. Because Stephanie was my adopted mom, I would tell everyone that Elsa was my sister. We also stayed connected through occasional pictures of Caspian and Grizzy that I would send to Stephanie. In 2018, I had some vacation time and decided to spend it by visiting different craft stores. Awesome. This is when I discovered my local yarn store, the Yarn Garden. I met Lindsay, the head gardener. I fell in love with the shawl that she had on display. Lindsay helped me pick out some beautiful Noro yarn. I went home and immediately cast on. Even though I had learned to knit, I only picked it up occasionally and would knit scarves or a small Afghan. But every time I did, I would have to research again how to cast on, knit, and purl. When I got to the lace part of the shawl, I scheduled a private knitting lesson with Lindsay. I finished the shawl and picked out my next project. And then the next, and so on. I remember at one point telling Lindsay I was addicted to knitting. I think we all understand that. As if this was a new revelation. She smiled at me and quietly said, "So am I." Me too. I have been a daily knitter ever since. Stephanie continued to come to the hospital, but Elsa had passed away, and now she had Hobbs, a Cavalier King Charles. Hobbs became an amazing pet therapy dog, but then the pandemic hit, and all of the volunteers were no longer allowed to come to the hospital. In September of 2021, it had been a couple of years since Stephanie and I had seen each other. Caspian was still around, and I sent her pictures. The yarn garden was now able to let customers in the shop with precautions. Stephanie was getting back into knitting, so I asked her if she wanted to meet up at the yarn garden so I could show her my favorite place. We met at the yarn garden on October 2nd, 2021. I brought a surprise with me. It was Caspian. He was about 18 years old, and it had been about 15 years since Stephanie saw him. It was a great reunion, both for Stephanie and Caspian, but also for Stephanie and I. Caspian passed away a few months later, but I am so glad for that day. Today, Stephanie is back to volunteering with Hobbs in the departments that I work. We knit together regularly at Tuesday night knitting, lunch at the local cafe and the park. We attend knitting classes, knit-alongs, the Mid-Mitten Shop Hop, and the Michigan Fiber Festival. And most recently, we visited a sheep farm that makes yarn from their wool. That sounds amazing. We spend time talking about knitting and our animals. Stephanie has 3 Cavalier King Charles named Hobbs, Calvin, and Pippa. I have 3 boxers named Joseph, Jacob, and Josiah. We share our adventures with our families, work, and life in general. God brought us together and created a bond that lasts a lifetime. Knitting and animals reunited us. I pray that everyone has a friend like Stephanie at least once in their life, and if they become a BKFF, they are doubly blessed. Wow, what a great story, Tammy. I love it. All of my really good friends, like I said, don't knit, but I am blessed with all of you guys who I get to see at things like retreats. And it's so nice when I get an email from one of you who came to the retreat, I immediately think of your face. And I love that. Like, I love getting to know you guys. That's been the best part of this business for me, is getting to know you guys. It has been so, so wonderful. Yeah, so thanks for joining me. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sending me a knitting story. If you have a knitting story, email it to me. Devin, D-E-V-I-N, at KnittyMcPurly.com. I'm a little slow in getting back to you, but I always read them. And I love sharing them on the podcast. So thank you so much. Tammy, thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you here next week. Bye, knitters.